Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here on the show, and here to talk about Monday Night Raw from tonight. What's the day? October 6th, 2025 edition of Monday Night Raw. As the go-home episode of Raw ahead of the premium live event on ESPN this weekend, this was underwhelming. We got a nice little angle from the Kabuki Warriors and Io Sky and the introduction of a new match on the show in the form of Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed. But the rest of the card was kind of woefully, I guess, underhyped, even with a great Rollins Rhodes video, which has been really good. They had a feud in the 3 weeks they've had to, build it and into Crown Jewel. With that said, there was a ton to like about this broadcast. Becky Lynch and Maxine Dupree absolutely stole the show with the banger of a match that had no right to be as great as it was. They put in the work, and the crowd rewarded them with the hottest reaction. I never heard that big of a crowd pop for a count out. Man, Becky Lynch is just a great worker in the ring. And hell, she put over Maxine Dupree. So she actually puts people over, unlike some other people in the Four Horsewomen. But yeah, that was great. Dirty Dom continues to earn the attention of opponents for the wrong reasons. Heyman's loyalty to Rollins, or lack therefore of, was called to the floor, and the Bloodline's latest chapter is being written with every passing week in the renewed influence of Roman on Jey Uso. Though the hype for Saturday's show was so-so at best, this was still a successful broadcast, thanks in part to the other stories preparing to affect the brand moving forward. Some great story tonight, what I've been asking for, more story, and we got that. So I give it a 8 out of 10 for tonight. Really enjoyed this show. So I want to get my overall thoughts. So let's go over the card we had here tonight. So ahead of the Crown Jewel PLE. Let's go over the card. Roman Reigns, he kicks off Raw, the OTC1. So a week after returning and gaining a measure of revenge on Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker following that assault at Clash in Paris that left him sidelined for over a month, he kicked off the show with a promo. Before he could address the return, he was interrupted by Reeve, by the Oracle. He shook off every attempt by the heel side to rattle him, including Reed and signing his father's name, and did not hesitate to accept a challenge for an Australian street fight. So at Crown Jewel, the babyface laid out Reed with a pair of Superman punches to close out the segment. There was not much to this segment from a substance standpoint, but Reigns commanded the scene. We got another match for the Crown Jewel card out of it, so it was a success. That match, though, will ultimately mean little if Reigns beats Reed like he did in Paris and returns things to status quo in his war with the Vision. They should have Bronson Reed win and not lose twice in a row. So they walked in like a couple of tough guys, but they seem to be walking out like a couple of bitches. Reigns says the heels tried to leave. He said so smoothly that it added to what was an otherwise cliched response. This incarnation of the OTC, dating back to the arrival of the Tribal Chief in 2020, is so cool. So glad he's heel. Next, Maxine Dupree versus Becky Lynch. This was amazing. The result of a backstage confrontation that turned physical when Lynch attacked Dupree. The two squared off in the opening match of the show. This was really good. Maxine Dupree defeats Becky Lynch. Arrogance proved costly as she taunted the audience, and Dupree returned to the ring in time to win the match via count-out. This was excellent. Backstage, Asuka demanded a match between Kairi Sane and Io Sky be made for tonight. Sane expressed hesitation after the Empress of Tomorrow slapped her for defiance, showing dominance and control over the Kabuki Warriors teammate. Had Saturday's Crown Jewel match with a tag team. But yeah, this was outstanding. If anyone has any questions on why Becky Lynch is really good, all the evidence you need was right there. She had a great match with unproven competitor, had the fans buying on every near fall, delivered the facial expressions and body language necessary to put over the shock of her loss. Just excellent. Here goes to Maxine, who's clearly been working hard to improve her in-ring work. While it was choppy early, she settled and delivered big time in one of her most important performances to date against definitely one of the top women in the company, Lyra versus Roxanne. This was solid as well. They have good chemistry. Lyra and Roxanne. Even their lesser matches are still good. With that said, this felt like more of the same we've seen over the last couple of weeks. The Bayley stuff has been great, but we need to see less of the same four competitors wrestling every week to avoid burnout of the in-ring content. Backstage, Reigns caught up with the Usos and denied Jay his offer to help at Crown Jewel, telling him to stay focused and taking exception to CM Punk talking at the top of the hour instead of him as the former world champion walked off. Reigns reminded Jimmy that he sees everything and asked why it's a problem for Jay to take advice from him. But we still got that going on with the Bloodline. CM Punk promo. Punk wasted a little time turning his attention to Rollins and regaining the World Heavyweight Championship, finally turned his title back by the end of the year, but L.A. Knight, he interrupted, still not abandoning his pursuit of the world title. He applauded Punk on cultivating love. What is happening? But claimed he's been more focused on being a husband than winning against Rollins. The megastar, he told Punk that he has never lost to Rollins, and the best in the world responded by reminding him that he's never been world champion either. Jay Uso interrupts, heeding his cousin's advice from earlier in the show, and he came face to face with the other prospective number one contenders. He threw down his claim to the world title. Jimmy Uso hit the ring, allowing Jay to rock Knight with a super kick. There a few more words from Punk, denouncing the former world champion's new attitude. The straight edge superstar took Jay down, earning him a super kick from Jimmy to close the segment. This was a very good segment. What looked like a repetitive segment aimed at the determining number one contender of the same three who last competed for that recognition, instead involved Knight and Punk and Knight finding themselves on the receiving end of the tournament Usos. More importantly, it set up a high-profile tag match for sooner rather than later. But I love this. You think you lost the title because you're not Roman enough? Knight asked Uso. Punk later added, I love Jey Uso. I don't like little Roman. The Bloodline is gearing up for a high-profile chapter next, which we'll see what happens with that. Io Sky versus Kairi Sane. This was a pretty solid match as well. With Rhea and Io likely to go over in Australia, the former's home country. Sane needing to win here. Her and Asuka are as hot as they've been in years. The moment Sane gets fed with Asuka and turns on her, the crowd is going to erupt, and everyone involved will be bigger stars as a result of it, whenever it happens. But, Kairi Sane defeats Io Sky. This was solid here. Interference from Asuka allowed Sane to recover and score the pinfall. The Vision, the Bloodline drama. This was very good as well. But before this, the video detailing the history between Cody and Seth before they compete against each other at Crown Jewel. A great reminder that WWE has a really good production team. This was great. Another thing, what's that old saying? When someone shows you who they are, believe them. For all the talk about a newer changed Reigns, it seems like there's plenty of the same manipulation villain in him that we knew and loved during the height of his top atop the WWE mountain during that run. But this was a great segment. Jay stomped off angrily, leaving Reigns to warn his cousin that when his brother won the world title, he became more like OTC and less like Jimmy. Sometimes the best way to help him is get out of his way, he advised, his influence clearly affecting Jey Uso. And Jimmy Uso kept it real with Roman Reigns, and I'm not like you. Jay is nothing like you. But yeah, this was great. The Vision, this drama with the Bloodline, AJ Styles, Dragon Lee, and Penta versus the Judgment Day. Styles, Penta, and Dragon Lee defeated the Judgment Day. This was a joke, right? 6 of the most entertaining in-ring performers on the roster. The match was interrupted by not one, but 2 commercial breaks completely ruined the flow and effectiveness. The match was fine, but this was more about highlighting the many different issues Mysterio's got himself into, really. It's not a bad thing considering he has the most upside of all in the ring at this point in their individual careers. But yeah, this was fun. And then you had, CM Punk and LA Knight versus the Usos. Knight and Punk defeated the Usos. LA Knight pinned Jay. This, like the six-man tag match for it, was criminally short. With that said, the pacing was still strong. The finish was clever. Not only does it intensify the tension between Punk and Knight over their title hopes, but Jay lost the fall, which earned him the scorn of his cousin, Roman. But yeah, this was solid to end the show. But yeah, that's really all I'll say for Monday Night Raw. Pretty solid, pretty good show tonight. The go-home show for the Crown Jewel pay-per-view this weekend. I think it's at 8 a.m. I'll recap it at some point during the day. I don't know when. because it's probably be a busy weekend with all the sports. So, yeah, that's all I say for this, though. Leave a like, subscribe for more, and take some Acolyte. Peace. And I'll be here with NLDS Game 2 recap, Cubs Brewers, to end the night.